Okay guys, so today we're going to be going over the basics to pen and ink drawing. There are different sizes in the pens. They go from 0.005 up to 0.8, and as they increase in size, the tips get bigger. So you could see the tip of this one is very, very narrow. And then as you go all the way up into the 0.8, you're gonna have your largest tip. So depending on the area you're filling in, how dark you need to make it, we'll describe the different pen. Probably for the most part, you're gonna be using like an 02 or 03, maybe an 01, unless you have any like really small detailed parts. So the first thing we're gonna be working on today is this practice sheet. And I'm just gonna hold this up for you guys and show you. I'm not gonna go over it so much in detail. There are different types of lines you can use with pen and ink to create shading. So unlike pencil, where you can either smudge or use your directional lines, this is actually going to be permanent, and we're just working with either lines or dots. So the first one is hatching, and that's lines going all one direction so that you're able to create value. So what I'm going to want you to do on the sheet is to create these circles into spheres using each technique. The next one is cross hatching, which is lines that crisscross over each other to create value. Now in all of these techniques, the closer you make the marks together, the darker the value is going to be, and the further apart they are, the lighter the value is going to be. The same thing with this bottom one, which is called stippling. So you're going to start along here with a bunch of small tiny dots, and then gradually go out so you have a medium value and then a light value. So those are the three I'm going to have you practice. You could also have your hatch marks going side to side like this. You could also do another technique which you might use for hair or other textures, which is called scumbling, which is pretty much a scribbled texture, and you could use it to create value as well. So I just included those on your sheets. I'm going to go in and I'm going to show you the next step for your pen and ink drawing now. So you guys are going to complete this first, and then you could go in and move into working with the techniques on your drawing. So I'm just going to adjust this a little bit. So you guys should all have your pencil drawing sketched out like this by now. What you want to do is you want to go ahead in and you want to erase as much as you can of the grid lines. We are also going to be going in at the very end and erasing any of the pencil from your drawing. So all of your lines are eventually going to be made up of ink. But we want to keep the pencil lines in there for now so that you can kind of use them as markers when drawing. But I like to get some of that out of the way so that I don't get too confused. So I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna show you guys just kind of how you could start. Sorry, I knew that was gonna happen. Just how you can start developing values in your drawings. I hope we don't fall again. Okay. I'm gonna go in with a number 2 pen, and as you could see in the part I started on my drawing, I have some stippling in there. I find that stippling is useful for more of the delicate areas, and also on the chameleon I'm drawing, he does have this kind of circular textures on his skin. I also included some hatching and cross hatching down here, and you could also kind of make up different textures with the pens as you go along. I'm going to go in and I'm going to show you how to do a few different things, how to include hair, and then also how to continue with the stippling. So I'm just going to go in, and what you guys want to do is you want to make sure you're paying attention to your picture the whole entire time. So you want to make the shadowed parts and the darker parts darkest. Therefore, you're going to have your lines or your dots closer together. So I noticed this really dark shadow right behind this light part here. I'm then going to go in and I'm going to kind of create my medium tone. So I have this really light piece through here. So I'm going to kind of go in, and so I'm making the same type of lines. just a little bit further apart so you could see that it's going to create a lighter value. You could kind of mix stippling and cross-hatching and all the different techniques as you go. But you always want to pay attention to the value you have. I usually like to start by going in and filling in some of the lighter tones first, and then I could go ahead and work with it. I'm going to do a lot of stippling on here just to get the texture. So if you guys could see through there. And I noticed that it's darker along this area here, so I'm just going to add more dots. It's definitely darker around the edges. I'm then going to slowly move in, and just like we did on our practice sheet on the sphere, I'm going to slowly move the dots in to create a gradual effect so that you could see as it starts to blend inward. So rather than outlining everything, you want to use the textures to shade with, just like when we did pencil drawing. So rather than outlining things, you want to create values. I'm then going to go in and I'm going to start to fill in some of the little almost like horn type spiky shapes on his back, and I'm just going to go in and I'm kind of stippling those back. To kind of include those in. So I'm going to help all of you individually, but one thing I want to go over is if you have any fur or hair texture in your drawings, you do want to go ahead and create it as if it would actually be going in the direction it's going. So you don't want to just go straight up and down if you have hair. On here, this was actually part of my head, so I would go in and use actual like wispy lines to create the different values. Now it's really, really dark. This was the bottom of my hand, so I'm going to make those lines really close together up towards the top of my head. And you can overlap them too, so the more you overlap, the darker it will get. And then as I bring them down here, they became lighter. And I am kind of going with the circular motion of my head so that we're not just going up and down. So you do want to shade like that also. The same thing goes for if you're starting to fill in like an eyebrow or something like that. You want to make sure that you pay attention to each individual hair. So rather than coloring the whole thing in, I'm going in and I'm just doing little pieces at a time. And you want to pay attention to the direction that each line in your drawing is going. So I'm going to hold this up a little closer so you guys could see. We're going to work on these for about 4 days, so you have plenty of time. And I'll be around if you have any questions, because I know that you all have very unique and individual things that you are drawing.